Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 episode number 78 based on novel. So let's start. A man in blue who was sitting cross-legged on the grass suddenly opened his eyes and saw the figure of a man in black landing in the distance. Luo-hee? The man in blue recognized him at a glance. Luo Feng also looked over and nodded with a smile. God King Qianmu. This man in blue is none other than the heavenly herdsman God King of the 13 royal families of the ancient Yangfeng Kingdom, the Emperor Nine Winds lineage. I didn't expect to see the great sage Luo-hee here. The God King Qianmu took a step forward and walked close to Luo Feng and greeted him warmly. As the God King of the royal family of the ancient Yangfeng Kingdom, he is naturally quite arrogant. But facing the great sage Luo-hee, the God King Qianmu is very humble and friendly. Because everyone knows that in the near future, the great sage Luo-hee may become a hegemonic existence on the origin continent. He, the God King Qianmu, was, after all, only at the first level of the God King realm. In terms of strength, he was about the same as Luo-hee at the moment. You know, Luo-hee is a Chaos Realm transcendent heavenly shepherd God King. How could he be arrogant? The Emperor is kind enough to let me hunt here. Luo Feng said. Our Yangfeng ancient nation has many territories in the infinite space, but the territory led by the Emperor is the safest. Qianmu God King said, the Emperor can give you a place, which shows that he values you. Although the God King Qianmu said this, he was very surprised in his heart. Everyone knows that Emperor Ming and Emperor Chu don't have a good relationship. But they are willing to help Luo-hee, which is really rare. Oh, right. Qianmu Divine King asked curiously, how did you get the chance to come in, great sage Luo-hee? Even the royal family's Chaos Realm Transcendence only has one chance to enter the treasure land. If you want more chances, you need to spend merit to exchange. If you want more opportunities, you have to exchange them? Luo Feng asked, how much merit can be exchanged? The exchange within the royal family is 1/10 of the guest king's quota. Qianmu Divine King did not hide it. After all, it has been no secret for a long time. For the guest king, the quota for entering the infinite space is 50 million merits. The royal family is 5 million merits once. Even so, for us, the first level of Divine King, it is not easy to accumulate 5 million merits. Luo Feng understood. Anyone who is not a God King from the two royal families and can accumulate 50 million merits, or who can snatch resources from the two ancient countries by force, is not an ordinary God King. The opportunity for me to come in came from the ancient country of Thunder. Luo Feng did not hide it. Oh. God King Qianmu was surprised. It took a lot of thought. Luo Feng did not elaborate. Qianmu God King looked at Luo Feng, smiled and sighed. Only the two royal families can enter the treasure land left by Yuan in the Chaos Realm. There are only a handful of people in the history of the entire origin continent. I can also guess that Luo-hee great sage relied on his strength to grab the opportunity. Compared with the great sage Luo-hee, those of us who rely on family resources seem mediocre. God King Qianmu shook his head. Who dares to say that a God King is mediocre? I am still stuck at a bottleneck. Luo Feng said. Ha ha, it's not a bottleneck for you. It won't take long for you to become a God King. God King Qianmu said, talking and laughing as if they were equals, without the normal feeling of looking down on the Chaos Realm by God Kings. The two sides chatted for a long time before parting. Luo Feng was quite emotional. 5 million merits were exchanged once within the royal family. The God Kings could earn it if they worked hard to accumulate them. But for the guest God Kings, 50 million merits would be much more difficult to accumulate. Especially for some ancient beings, they would naturally form alliances if they were strong enough, and start to fight and rob with strength. The two great ancestors never intervened in these disputes, perhaps because they disdained it, or perhaps because those resources were left by Yuan. There are 3 native creatures in the hunting ground given to me by the Emperor Moth. Luo Feng flew towards the nearest native creature based on the information. After flying for more than 10 breaths, Luo Feng saw the creature. Luo observed the native creature. This native creature existed between reality and illusion, with 8 huge tentacles permeating the void. In the middle of its huge body was a huge head, and the blood-red single eye on the head was observing Luo Feng. Just by observing, you can feel the invisible spiritual power permeating and influencing you. Luo Feng himself was a second-level divine king, and with the protection of the elemental art, he naturally thought it was just a breeze. According to the intelligence, every native creature in the infinite space is a spiritual creature. The mind is the core, and the body is secondary. Luo Feng thought, their range of activities is very small. This huge tentacle creature was also observing Luo Feng, thinking, my will has descended upon this mysterious place, and this alien warrior is my 9th calamity. He must survive thousands of calamities before he can transform. After thousands of trials and tribulations, if you fail, you will die. This tentacle creature is also patient. Luo Feng moved. This infinite space sealed off the 19 avenues of origin, but the most basic laws of chaos could still be applied. The tentacle creature also swung out its tentacles. The tentacles were terrifyingly powerful and reached the God King level in terms of strength. They were not inferior to Luo Feng's physical body at all. But, in terms of skills, this tentacle creature is not even as good as the law of chaos and appears extremely clumsy. Bang! Luo Feng was like an afterimage, dodging the tentacle's attack in a flash, and kicked the tentacle creature's huge head like a knife, causing the huge head to explode with a bleeding hole. Woo! A low roar sounded, and a chaotic mental force suddenly erupted, invading Luo Feng's mental will. This alien warrior, his will is too terrifying, I can't penetrate it at all. The tentacle creature was a little frightened. It had experienced disasters before and encountered other god kings in the infinite space. The strongest one was only a god king of the 2nd level of spiritual will, but he didn't have the method of legend technique. It could still pollute and penetrate a little. Bang! Bang! The tentacle creature's body exploded again and again. It was indeed much worse than Luo Feng in close combat. As the injury gets worse. Tear! Luo Feng also tore open a huge tentacle that had been injured long ago. Luo Feng had an overwhelming advantage in close combat, and it took about a cup of tea for him to finally tear the tentacle creature into pieces. Luo Feng even destroyed it with one move after another. However, the huge will of the tentacle creature still lingered there. Buzz! Suddenly, under the mobilization of illusory thoughts, invisible forces gathered. In just a few breaths, the invisible forces gathered and formed a tentacle creature. It's fine again. Luo Feng looked at this scene and was not surprised at all. According to intelligence, it is a native creature of the infinite space, and normal physical combat cannot completely kill it, Luo Feng thought. Even if its body is annihilated again and again, it will take hundreds or even thousands of times to hurt it. It will disappear for a long time, and then recover and come back again after a long time. You will get 1 bonus point only if you force it to disappear. Because they could not be killed, the territory that Emperor Moth allocated to Luo Feng was only 3 native creatures. These 3 native creatures are enough for Luo Feng to kill continuously. The only way to completely kill it is to destroy its will. It will die completely and will never recover. Luo Feng thought, according to the intelligence, even the weakest native creatures need the ultimate will of the God King to have a hope of completely destroying their will. I only have the spiritual will of the 2nd level of the Divine King, combined with the element art. I don't know if I can destroy it. Luo Feng looked at the tentacle creature in front of him. The tentacle creature was also observing Luo Feng. This is my calamity, the 9th calamity. The tentacle creature has a long life and is naturally very patient. Suddenly, everything in the tentacle creature's sight disappeared. It could not see anything else but a majestic, rotating star. This huge star rolled over and directly crushed the chaotic and crazy mental power of the tentacle creature. The chaotic and crazy mental power of the tentacle creature was crushed by 70 to 80% in an instant. Not good. The tentacle creature also saw Luo Feng clearly. At this moment, there was shock and anger in its huge blood-red eye. Its body collapsed in an instant and its mental consciousness completely left. A world far away. In this world, there are thousands of nations, countless creatures struggling to survive, and practitioners. But the real masters of this world are some terrifying beings, which are called demons. The devil is immortal and feeds on the 7 emotions and 6 desires of living beings. Woo! Deep in the ocean of this world, there is an extremely huge tentacle creature. The size of this tentacle creature occupies about 1/3 of the entire ocean. This is also the forbidden sea of the entire world. This tentacle creature is also the source of evil in the world, the most terrifying existence, and it is also the way of the world. Countless practitioners in this world have studied the path of practice from it. My 9th calamity is so terrifying. He actually destroyed 70% to 80% of my spiritual power with just one blow. There was a hint of fear in the tentacle creature's single eye. The source of evil in this world, being like the way of heaven, could actually be afraid? If the practitioners in this world knew about this, they would probably not believe it. However, he annihilated my most chaotic and messy thoughts. The tentacle creature also discovered this, and what remains are more pure and condensed. I feed on the emotions of countless creatures in the world, but I am also becoming more and more confused. 1,000 tribulations are both tribulations and trials. After I get through this, I will be able to completely transform. The tentacle creature also discovered the benefits of this attack, but it also needs to recuperate. When the time comes, I must come again. This disaster is much more terrible than the previous one. During the 1,000 tribulations training process, you can take a break temporarily, but you cannot retreat. You must go through each tribulation one by one. After the tentacle creature disappeared on its own initiative, it did not reappear. It usually took hundreds or even thousands of physical fights to force it to disappear. The tentacle creature slipped away after just one hit from the element technique. It's a pity that I couldn't kill it completely. Luo Feng shook his head slightly. It's probably because my mind and will are not strong enough. Even if he was at the ultimate level of God King's will, and used some powerful will secrets, he could only hope to completely kill him. If his spiritual will was a few times stronger, he might be able to kill him with one strike. These random thoughts. Luo Feng frowned slightly. When he destroyed 70% to 80% of the opponent's spiritual power, a lot of distracting thoughts were contaminated by his spiritual will, and the various emotions and desires of countless creatures were infecting himself. This was also the consequence of the spiritual will against this kind of native creature. Suddenly, boom! Invisible rules descended and enveloped Luo Feng. Defeat a psychic creature once, and get 1 point as reward. Fighting with the basic laws of chaos, new avenue rating, low. Reward point 0. You have not opened up any new avenues, and you still need to work hard. You are in the chaos realm, and have reached the 2nd level of Divine King Will. Your mental will rating is medium. 100 points of reward. Your mental will is barely good enough and needs to be improved. Total reward points, 101 points. The invisible rules appeared for just a moment and then retreated. Luo Feng looked at the palm of his left hand, where a rule mark appeared. The rule mark can connect to the rules of this infinite space, and can be used to check one's own reward point information and exchange for treasure resources. It is indeed difficult to earn reward points in an infinite space. Luo Feng thought to himself, when you defeat a spiritual creature, the maximum reward point is only the first time, which is 1 point. The reward will decrease as time goes by. I heard that after 100 times, each time will be less than 0.01 point. The evaluation of infinite space obviously attaches great importance to opening up new avenues. Luo Feng thought, it also attaches great importance to the will of the mind. This is the treasure land left by Yuan. It can be seen that his selection of the younger generation is mainly based on opening up new avenues and spiritual will. Perhaps how far one can go on the path of cultivation is related to these 2 items. Luo Feng made some guesses. Standing at the height of Yuan, what he values is not the comprehension of the existing avenues, but the opening up of new avenues. Is this possibly related to the realm above the ultimate divine king? Luo Feng pondered, then smiled. Let's take it one step at a time. The ultimate God King realm was very far away from him. Luo Feng didn't have any detailed information about how many ultimate god kings there were in the entire origin continent. Let's take a look at the treasure house first. Luo Feng looked through the rule mark and began to check the resources in the treasury, instantly gaining access to a large amount of information. Luo Feng had 101 points and could view resource information with no more than 101 bonus points. These reward points are really durable. Luo Feng's eyes lit up when he checked them. Luo Feng first looked at the inheritance information. The first-ranked inheritance, the first realm of the 9 realms of extinction, requires 100 reward points to redeem. This is a theoretically perfect inheritance that is accessible to all source worlds, corresponding to the first level of the Divine King realm. As a perfect level inheritance, it is actually impossible for a God King level practitioner to fully master it, but even if they can achieve some success, it is already remarkable. Danger warning: the entry threshold of the first realm of 9 realms of extinction is extremely high. You need to surpass the will of the God King before you can try to practice, otherwise you will be assimilated by the origin of destruction of this source world. What the hell? To inherit the first level of the Divine King realm, one needs to surpass the Divine King level willpower to try to practice it? Luo Feng was incredulous. And he also said that it is actually impossible to completely practice it. This is what Yuan left behind. Yuan dared to say that it was impossible for a God King to fully master it. He must have his reasons. Just from the entry level, the requirements for the mind and willpower are enough to show the horror of this inheritance. Passing through all source worlds, theoretically perfect. Luo Feng vaguely felt the hidden message in these words. The second-ranked inheritance, the first 2 volumes of The Myriad Divine Body, requires 100 reward points to redeem, corresponding to the second level of the Divine King. Luo Feng looked carefully and only saw 2 perfect level inheritances. The 6th-ranked inheritance, Time and Space Traveler, Volume 1, requires 90 reward points to redeem. This is a theoretically perfect inheritance that is common to all source worlds and corresponds to the first level of the Divine King realm. This inheritance is extremely difficult to enter. There have been more than 10,000 people who have redeemed it so far, but only 3 have been able to enter. These 3 are all beings that have surpassed the ultimate realm of the God King. Danger reminder: 1. You must surpass the will of the God King before you can try to practice, otherwise you will be lost. 2. You must comprehend all branches of the Great Tao of Time Origin and the Great Tao of Space Origin before you can try to practice. If you comprehend them by force, you will suffer the catastrophe of the annihilation of time and space. 3. This path, the fusion of time and space, requires extraordinary talent in time and space, otherwise there will be endless disasters. Why are there endless disasters? Luo Feng looked at it and muttered. These 3 danger warnings, especially the third one, were vague. Without extraordinary talent, there will be endless disasters. No wonder the reward points for the same perfect level inheritance are lower than those for the 9 realms of extinction. It feels like the danger level is significantly higher. This kind of theoretically perfect inheritance also says that it is impossible to fully practice at the God King level, so who created it? Luo Feng vaguely guessed that it might be some very terrifying existence that reached an incredible realm and created this inheritance. Because it is too perfect, the requirements in all aspects are too high. Luo Feng only needed to look at the treasure house to notice the difference between the infinite space treasure house and the exchange of the inheritance of the 2 ancient countries. Why is there endless trouble? Luo Feng looked at it and murmured. These 3 danger warnings, especially the third one, were vague. Without extraordinary talent, there will be endless trouble. No wonder the reward points for the same perfect level inheritance are lower than those for the 9 realms of extinction. It feels like the danger level is significantly higher. This kind of theoretically perfect inheritance also says that it is impossible to fully practice at the God King level, so who created it? Luo Feng vaguely guessed that it might be some very terrifying existence that reached an incredible realm and created this inheritance. Because it is too perfect, the requirements in all aspects are too high. Luo Feng only needed to look at the treasure house to notice the difference between the infinite space treasure house and the exchange of the inheritance of the 2 ancient countries. The exchange of the inheritance of the two ancient countries was left by the two ancestors. In terms of level, it is far inferior to this infinite space treasure house. However, this infinite space treasure house requires a large number of reward points to exchange, and reward points are extremely difficult to obtain. Luo Feng's eyes suddenly lit up, and when he looked down quickly, he saw a familiar inheritance. The first tribulation of 8 tribulations life form requires 5 reward points to redeem, which corresponds to the first level of the God King realm. This kind of inheritance is divided into 8 kalpa. It is relatively easy to practice and is the best inheritance of the Enlightenment lineage. Superior inheritance? Luo Feng had already discovered it. The inheritance collected in this treasure house was divided into 4 types: medium inheritance, superior inheritance, special inheritance, and perfect inheritance. In the ancient country of Yangfeng, among the inheritances that did not rely on external objects for cultivation, the first level of the Divine King and the first level of the 8 tribulations life form were considered the most excellent level. But here, it was only considered superior. Luo Feng studied for a long time, carefully understood all the inheritance information, and also summarized some of it. For a perfect inheritance, the theoretical threshold for achieving perfection is extremely high. In reality, it is impossible to truly practice it. It would be amazing if you could practice even a small part of it. Special inheritance has a very high threshold. It is possible to truly cultivate to the God King level, but the probability is extremely low. It is possible that there is not a single God King in a source world who can cultivate to a high level. It is rare to be able to enter. Superior inheritance is the one that is more suitable for a wider range of people. A medium-level inheritance, the inheritance that the God Kings normally practice. Lower? Not worth mentioning. The inheritance of Xinjiang sect and Duandonga lineage, which are merely inheritances left behind by the first level of Divine King, are not worth mentioning. Luo Feng took a fancy to a heritage in this treasure house. The first chapter of World Life Form requires 30 reward points to redeem, which corresponds to the first level of the God King realm. To inherit this school, one needs to cultivate both the Great Tao of the Origin of Life and the Great Tao of the Origin of Matter. Reminder, you need to comprehend all the 6 branches of the Origin of Life and the 8 branches of the Origin of Matter before you can enter. This inheritance is to cultivate your own life body as a world. The ultimate pursuit is to make your own life body become a source world, and the upper limit is very high. The 10-direction world form that I am pursuing now is similar to this inheritance. My formlessness and invisibility can replace some of the abilities of the Great Tao of the Origin of Matter. Maybe you can try practicing. Luo Feng was very excited. Because the concept of this tradition is very similar to my own method of change. Luo Feng thought for a moment. No matter what, it contains the origin of life. As big as the 6 major branches, just comprehending this aspect, the content is not too much, and it should be of great help to the improvement of his transformation method. Exchanged. Luo Feng immediately had an idea and chose to exchange for this special inheritance. Buzz. A lot of information is transmitted. The world life form was created by a good friend of Yuan. This inheritance is divided into 3 chapters, corresponding to the 3 levels of content: the first level of the Divine King, the second level, and the ultimate level. As for the higher levels, they must be taught in person by Yuan's good friend. Wonderful. As soon as Luo Feng received the inheritance, he was exposed to a vast amount of information. The creator of this inheritance has reached an incredible level of research on life forms and the original world. This inheritance of the Trinity form and the 24 forms of the 10 directions world form are just one of many forms. The combination of life and matter is even more mysterious. This is the special inheritance. Luo Feng sighed secretly. It was too powerful. Although he had the method of transformation, he seemed weak in front of the complete avenue of the origin of matter. Luo Feng vaguely realized that if he continued along this path, he would encounter a huge bottleneck in the future. In the early stage, using the transformation method can indeed make up for the requirements of the Great Tao of the Origin of Matter and can cultivate the world life body, but in the future it is estimated that the 8 tribulations life body, and the world life body will still be used as aids to open up my own path. Luo Feng thought. Then, Luo Feng sat cross-legged in the forest and began to carefully study this new special inheritance. Although the infinite space guides those who come in to open up their own paths, Luo Feng is very clear that he is only in the chaos realm and has not even truly mastered a branch of the origin of the great Tao. You can slowly accumulate experience to open up a road, but don't force it. You have to know that most of the people who enter the infinite space are God Kings, and there are even Emperor-level beings. They have deep accumulation and can try to open up a road. This spiritual impurity. Any of Luo Feng's incarnations felt some spiritual pollution. Those were the consequences of severely damaging the spiritual creature in the infinite space. All kinds of desires and prayers of countless creatures echoed in Luo Feng's mind. Luo Feng normally uses the Great Destruction mind refining technique. Based on his own spiritual will, he implemented a new method of great destruction with the intention of great destruction of all things, forming a millstone of world destruction in an attempt to completely wipe out his own spiritual power. Therefore, no matter how high Luo Feng's spiritual will is, this training method is still effective. In the past, when Luo Feng practiced the Great Destruction mind training method to purify his own mind, he always felt that his progress was extremely slow. But now that he has been subjected to a lot of mental pollution and is being erased, the effect is much more obvious. Luo Feng also felt pain, as if a bit of his soul was crushed by glass. Of course, this was just an illusion caused by pollution. This shows the horror of massive spiritual pollution. Eternal. Luo Feng suddenly had a deeper understanding of the ending diagram. In this precious land of infinite space, will and spiritual creatures collide, become polluted, and then have the pollution erased. This is actually the cleansing of the soul. Every cleansing is another kind of spiritual practice. Senior Yuan really has good intentions. He guides us to cleanse our souls and pave our own way. Luo Feng is very fortunate to have this opportunity to obtain this precious land. Perhaps in the eyes of the royal families of the two ancient countries, this opportunity is the most ordinary one among those left by Yuan, but Luo Feng feels that this opportunity makes his way forward much brighter. Just based on this opportunity, Luo Feng is more confident that he can reach a higher level in the origin continent. After erasing all the mental pollution, I feel that my mind is more ethereal and my will is more condensed. Luo Feng was secretly surprised. He could clearly feel the improvement after just washing his face once. It can be seen that the effect is quite good. It turns out that the Great Destruction mental training method is more suitable in conjunction with mind pollution. Then, Luo Feng began to concentrate on comprehending this new special inheritance. This video will end here.